Urban legends differ from country to country and even region to region. However, one thing is for sure, they're all completely terrifying. Before humans started to record everything, stories such as this were passed down through storytelling, and this is how many urban legends started out. What's an urban legend from your country? Let us know in the comments. Number 5. Within the religion of Islam exists a terrifying urban legend of a shapeshifter called jinn. The word jinn in English translates to genie and is used to describe spirits, demons, or other paranormal entities. They're said to have been created from fire and air, whereas man was created from flesh and bone, and angels made from light. There are numerous passages in the Quran which make reference to their creation, with a holy prophet saying, quote, "The angels were created from the light and the jinn from the smokeless fires." Jinn are said to have shape-shifting abilities and can also possess humans, animals, and other objects, and are said to have strong supernatural powers that we in the human realm did not understand. The main aim of a jinn is to lure people into worshipping it instead of God, leading them on a dark and troublesome path. Some communities have reported loved ones being possessed by jinns for one reason or another, and that the only way to get rid of them is via an exorcism, by reciting scripture from the Quran over and over again until the jinn leaves. Different countries and different regions have their own iterations of jinn stories, with the urban legend of al-Dawai being native to the United Arab Emirates. And apologies if that pronunciation isn't exactly right, it's difficult to find the correct pronunciation online. The name al-Dawai is enough to strike fear into anyone from this part of the world, as she's said to be a female jinn who's known for her striking beauty and ability to lure men into peril. Dawai is said to be dripping with gold and expensive jewelry, and smells of exotic perfumes and incenses. Those who have encountered her describe her as the most beautiful woman they'd ever laid eyes on. However, when they get closer, they discover her true identity. Once people get closer, they realize that Dawai is a deformed old woman, with some saying that she has the legs of a donkey. Men who are seduced and drawn in rarely make it out alive. It's said that she kills these men in horrific ways before leaving their bodies and disappearing into the darkness from which she came. The story is often told to children to stop them from wandering around at night, and to warn them about talking to strangers, no matter how appealing they may seem. There's even video footage that claims to have been captured of an Dawai. Number 4. If you're ever on holiday in Hawaii and see warriors emerging from the sea or ground, spears in hand, it may be time to run. Because these aren't just normal ghosts, these are night marchers. In Hawaiian folklore, these night marchers, sometimes known as spirit ranks, are said to be ghosts of warriors from centuries ago who walked the earth from sundown until sunrise, protecting the high-ranking chiefs from centuries ago. Those who have encountered night marchers say that they've heard chanting, drums, and marching all throughout the night as the warriors make their rounds. The night marchers hover just above the ground, carrying torches and screaming chants along the way. It's advised that if you see or hear the night marchers, you're to seek shelter immediately and divert your gaze away from them, as legend has it that those who dare look the warriors in the eyes will meet a violent death. As per their name, the marchers usually are only seen at night and are more likely to be spotted at very specific times. One of these times is when night falls near the end of the lunar cycle, and locals believe that paranormal activity and sightings are heightened during this time, when the veil between our world and the afterlife is the thinnest. Another time is when there's a new moon, as it's also known for its spiritual connections. Despite their name, the marchers have been spotted during daytime as well, though. Folklore dictates that marchers are only seen during the daytime if they're escorting a relative into the next life. If you see them during the day, the same precautions should be taken, as anyone who dares to lay eyes upon them is met with bolts of fire from the warrior's eyes, killing them almost instantly. Number 3. Located in Oxford, Alabama, the Hell's Gate Bridge is said to be Alabama's most haunted bridge, and urban legends have circulated about it since the 1950s. The legend goes that in the 1950s, a young couple were driving along the bridge when their car spun out of control, plunging them off the side of the bridge and into a watery grave. Locals claim that by driving your car in the middle of the bridge and turning your lights off, you'll be visited by one of the ghosts of the young couple who will leave a wet spot on the passenger seat. Don't linger around on the bridge for too long though, as you don't want to anger the spirits of the young couple who lost their lives there. There's also another urban legend about Hell's Gate Bridge, which describes how it got its name. For the second legend, you'll also need to drive your car out to the middle of the bridge. However, instead of stopping, you look over your shoulder. Once you turn your head and look over your shoulder, you'll be greeted with the fiery gates of hell, beckoning you to come closer. Sadly, the bridge has been officially closed since 2005, after it was determined to be structurally unsound, but that hasn't stopped people from investigating. People who live in the area still report seeing ghostly apparitions and the fiery portal to hell, even when they're making their journey on foot. Number 2. In November of 1995, on a cold and gloomy night, two people, an elderly woman and a young woman, were waiting at a bus stop for the 375 midnight bus in Beijing, China. After making polite chit-chat, the bus finally pulled up to the stop and the two got on, with the elderly woman taking a seat at the front and the young woman opting for a seat further back. At some point along the journey, the bus driver noticed two men stood in the middle of the road, frantically waving at him to stop the bus. At first, the driver was hesitant to stop, but eventually pulled the bus over to the side of the road. When he opened the doors, the driver saw that there was in fact a third man, who passengers described as having long scraggly hair and an unkempt appearance, and he was being propped up by the other two. The men were dressed in clothing from the Qing dynasty, but the driver didn't ask too many questions and let them on board. The passengers noticed that there was something not quite right with the three men. They were all extremely pale and wearing dated clothing. Near the end of the bus route, the young man and old woman began to argue, with the old woman claiming that the younger man had stolen her wallet. The older woman demanded that the two get off the bus at the next stop and go to the nearest police station to resolve the matter. The young man was extremely confused, as he hadn't tried to take the other woman's wallet and wanted nothing but a peaceful journey home. It wasn't until they got off of the bus that the older woman told him the real reason she'd been so insistent about getting off the bus. To his horror, the young man stood in shock as the older woman explained that the three men on the bus hadn't been touching the ground at all. Some iterations of the story claimed that the three men had no legs at all either. The older woman said, quote, "Those three were ghosts. Ever since they got on the bus, I had my doubts about them, so I kept looking back at them. The wind came in from the window and raised their robes, and I saw they didn't have feet." According to sources, the 375 ghost bus never made it to its final destination, leaving the old woman and young man in a state of shock. It wasn't until days later that the bus was recovered from a nearby reservoir about 62 miles from its final destination. Inside lay the bodies of three people: the driver, the female conductor, and an unidentified man with long scraggly hair. It's also mentioned that the tank was filled with blood instead of petrol. Number 1. During Soviet times, the urban legend of the Black Vulga was told to children to scare them into behaving and not wandering off with strangers. The legend says that a black GAZ-21 or GAZ-24 driven by the KGB, or sometimes even Satan himself, would drive around the streets looking for children to kidnap. Children in Russia and surrounding areas were all traumatized with different iterations of the story. Young children were told that they'd be kidnapped because their blood was used by evil Westerners to cure ailments such as leukemia, or that their organs would be snatched and used by the KGB for experimentation. The legend of the Black Vulga is believed to have originated from stories about one of the higher-ups of the NKVD. It's rumored that one of these members had driven around in his government-appointed GAZ-21 or 24 to look for young women he wanted to take back to his home. Once he spotted someone that he liked, he would order for them to be kidnapped from the street and they would never be seen again. The legend also has an air of truth to it, as the KGB and secret police were known to make enemies of the state simply vanish into thin air. In a more modern version of the story, the car is described to be a black BMW or Mercedes with horns instead of wing mirrors and a number plate that simply reads 666. A Polish version of the Black Vulga story involves an ambulance being used where children are kidnapped and used for medical experiments. Those who have encountered the Black Vulga report the driver asking them, quote, "What time is it?" If the child tells the time, they're snatched off the street, never to be seen again. Other times, the driver may say, quote, "Tomorrow you will die at this exact time." If you're ever approached by a mysterious black car and they ask you the time, you should just respond with, "It's God's time," before running as fast as you can. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future videos. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next upload.